Well, Laurence Skelly MHK for Rushen is joining us. Obviously, lots to talk about with your ministerial hat on. But I've been starting everyone off by just talking about the COVID situation, how it was handled. Obviously, you are in Co-Min, so you obviously were right in the centre of this. How do you think it all went?
Well, so far so good. It has been one heck of a journey, to say the least. And I think those very, very early days in terms of the meetings and what was potentially predicted was very scary. I think not just from government, but I think the island in general. But we have achieved a great deal in a very short space of time. And it's well worth recognising every government everywhere and continues to struggle with this. So yes, it's been tough, but I believe we got to a place where the Isle of Man is in a good place.
With the Enterprise hat on, I mean, your job creation, I mean, all that must have gone out the window, really, did it? I mean, it must have been quite frightening to see what was going on with all the job supporting that had to be put in place.
You're right, Paul. And not only that, because of course it was all about the preservation, protection of life. But of course, we understand and recognise that without a positive economy, i.e. taxes being paid, we were actually going to lose a significant amount of funds every month. Predicted £100 million per month could have been actually lost if we stayed in that strict lockdown. So getting the economy back up and running has been absolutely crucial and vital, and it's encouraging to see where we're at.
So in Co-Min, you and Alf must be facing one side of this argument to some degree, and you've got people who just want to keep the borders closed completely and lock everything down. You must be the ones pushing slightly on that door, right? Well,
it's a balance, at the end of the day, because of course without economy it's difficult to support the health service and all the public services that we do have, but I think we went from that protection and preservation of life to protection and preservation of our economy, and we found I think a very good balance to this particular point.
Okay, well, we'll park that for a minute. Let's go back over the last year. What have been your highs and lows?
Well, I mean, COVID dominates, doesn't it, really? But it's quite interesting in that very short space of time. We were looking at, take the economy, for example, we were looking at, I believe, a 15-year low in terms of unemployment. We were seeing record amounts of investment coming into the economy, and things were looking very positive, very strong. And of course, literally within weeks we went to a 20-year high for unemployment and the economy going in the opposite direction. So that is your high and there is your low.
How much of a body blow losing the TT is it? Because I saw these figures that X amount of money seemed to go out regardless of with it being cancelled. It still cost the Isle of Man PLC quite a lot of money.
It did, and we of course someone will remember of course what happened with regards to foot and mouth and with that cancellation. But what we really discovered, I think more so this time, is how much of the island the TT touches in terms of economic benefit. So you've got all your hotel industry, your self-catering industry, tourism industry, your hospitality industry. That's understandable, but it also touched a lot of sporting clubs. It also touched churches with TTTs. So there were a lot of people that benefit from TT regardless of them not just being in the accommodation and hospitality sector. So yes, it has been really important. It's not just the TT, but we have cancelled the Classic TT, the Mouse Grand Prix and a host of other events.
We'll come back to this in the second part because obviously you've got the next CT to talk about. What else has been going on? I mean, you, as I say, your job creation. Yet we have very low unemployment. So that's you doing a good job, or are we just losing people still to the youngers going off to the UK? People still seem to be hearing that we're not over busy here, but what was it like? I mean, you saw the figures.
And it goes back to the locate strategy, that, Paul. So one of the pillars of that was actually trying to get Manxies to return to the island, tell them that there is opportunity here, there is job prospects here. And interestingly enough, through COVID, we have already seen a good number of people. Right now, it's just anecdotal information, but I can know numerous cases where young Manxies have come back to the island. Why? Because they came back initially from a safety and a health point of view first, but now they are seeing that there are jobs available. And you've also got the digital nomads, which there are people actually living and working here, but work for companies not on the island.
With your ministerial hat on, you're always throwing money at projects, trying to stimulate. Yeah. I mean, you come in quite a lot of flack on that, I should imagine, because for everyone that wins, we hear about the ones that don't make it. Is that a tough call? I mean, trying to put that money in the right places?
Well, I think the word is innovative, isn't it, really? We talk about innovation, we want innovation. What's innovation? It's taking a risk. And, the island, not just in my time, but, long before with the finance industry, that was innovation at its time. Digital industry, it's sprung up, in the last 20 odd years. And you're seeing there, these are potentially transportable industries, but we believe transportable to the Isle of Man and a benefit for the island. And right the way through COVID, those were the industries that actually sustained us. The finance and professional sector and digital sectors continue to perform and pay taxes, all importantly.
So, you've had some very interesting time over the last 5 years, with the TT and all that issues. You've been called Teflon Man quite often, haven't you?
You've only by you, I think.
No,
I don't know. I think it's politics, isn't it? Politics, there are, you said, highs and lows, and there's challenges all the time. And politics is sort of the art of crisis management very often, but it's also the art of what is possible. So you go through these particular periods, and it's all a matter of how you manage it, because you can't get things right all the time. You try to get it in the basis of the aggregate at the end of the day, and in my case really was all about the economy. So where was the economy now versus what it was like 5 years ago? And as again,
what was it like besides the current
if I go back 5 years prior to that, when it first did stand, things were requiring massive change in terms of direction of, I think, government in general. And because we had the 2008 financial crash, we had the VAT issue, and there was a big machine, as in government, going in one direction of spend, and it required a fair amount of budget balance and austerity in many people's eyes. That first administration and this administration has been built the building blocks to get to where we are today.
But you were for getting the government numbers down, I think, from your original manifesto. Well, last manifesto, you're getting it down, but we're creeping up again. Are these people coming to work in your department?
No. When we restructured the department, because that was one of the aims that we had, and when I went back into the department, what was Economic Development, now Department for Enterprise, we restructured, created the executive agencies, and we reduced the number of staff. And that was done very consciously, because that, of course, I'd had a commitment, personal commitment, but also it was, I think, an indication of where we needed to go, I believe, with regards to not just my department, but I think by government. I haven't seen the overall figures to evaluate that.
But it is up, isn't it?
Well, there was a question recently about that, but I can only speak for my area, my department, and I know we did go down.
Okay, well, let's talk about Rushen in your area. The Marine Biological Centre, where are we up to with this? Because, it's had a few sort of starts.
Ups and downs, you might say.
Yeah, it was in your manifesto. You really want to get that going.
Absolutely. And I think this is where sometimes you go through this. There was a wonderful application put by the late Hamish Ross, now sadly, that fell over at the last minute. And that's where you look at these situations. You say, well, hang on a minute, dust yourself off. How can we achieve that? And right now, we now have planning in principle approved for a mixed-use development.
See, I thought I heard that, but yes. I can't see anything happening. That's all.
COVID has come along.
Right.
So the principle, which included, this is one of the problems with the last application, almost a 300-page traffic management report. So that is approved, which is great news. So now we need to get the detail. And wonderfully, we're seeing other developments happening in the constituency. The Royal is now being built. The pre-sales on that are great. Bay Queen is now going to be finally developed after 20-odd years there. So we're seeing investment coming into Rushen, and I like to think that that's a positive change from where we were 10 years ago.
Sure, but a lot of places have turned into flats, haven't they? And you've seen infrastructure go well. Some of the pubs or whatever having hard times.
Well, not in our case. So we've got the Falcon's Nest that's gone through a refurbishment. We've got a new pub really there, which is well worth a visit, I might say, along with many other great establishments in Rushen. But they're actually upgrading that hotel from a 2-star. They want to go to a 3-star. So there is confidence and investment actually happening in our constituency.
And how do you get on, you guys, the two MHKs as such? Do you work together well?
Very well. In fact, we had a joint meeting yesterday with some constituents, and I'd say we've been very effective.
Does it have difficult with him being the speaker? Does that make things tricky?
No, it probably makes it better in terms of representation for the constituents we actually represent. So he's technically backbench and I'm in council ministers. So yes, there is a benefit to that.